Before we start, I want to be very honest. This topic is personal for me. I'm a public person. People watch me, comment about me, judge me. Sometimes I feel strong, but sometimes I feel afraid. Afraid of what people think, afraid of criticism, afraid of doing something wrong and being judged forever. Today, we're talking about something many people feel, but few say out loud: the fear of what others think. I'm here with a psychologist who has worked with many people dealing with this exact problem. Thank you for being here. Let me ask you directly: why do we care so much about what people think? Thank you for your honesty. What you described is extremely common. Humans are social beings. For thousands of years, belonging to a group meant survival. If the group rejected you, you were in danger. That fear is still inside us today, even if our lives are very different. The problem is that this fear has grown too big. Today, people don't just want to belong, they want approval, validation, likes, respect from everyone, and that is impossible. When you try to please everyone, you slowly disappear. That's very strong. I often feel that my image matters more than who I really am. Is that normal? Yes. And social media made it worse. We live in a culture of appearances. People compare lives, bodies, success, opinions. Many people don't live their life, they perform it. They ask, how does this look? Instead of, how does this feel? Over time, this creates anxiety, insecurity, and self censorship. People stop saying what they think, doing what they want, or being who they are because they are afraid of judgment. I feel that a lot, especially with comments. One negative comment stays in my head longer than 100 positive ones. Why? Because the brain is designed to focus on danger, not comfort. A negative comment feels like a threat. Your mind asks, am I doing something wrong? Am I rejected? This activates stress. The problem is not the comment, the problem is the meaning you give to it. Many people confuse opinions with truth, but opinions say more about the person who gives them than about the person who receives them. What about family, friends, work, or school? Sometimes the pressure comes from people close to us. That's even harder. When judgment comes from strangers, it hurts. But when it comes from family or friends, it touches identity. Parents, teachers, bosses, and friends often project their fears onto us. They say things like, that's risky, that's not realistic, or what will people say? They think they are protecting us, but sometimes they are limiting us. If you live only to meet other people's expectations, you will never meet your own. So, Should we completely stop caring about what people think? This is very important. No, not always. This is where people misunderstand the message. Not caring at all can be dangerous in some situations. Feedback matters. Social rules exist for a reason. The key is who you listen to and why. Caring about the opinion of a mentor, a client, or a loved one who truly wants your growth is healthy. Caring about random judgment, gossip, or superficial opinions is destructive. Wisdom is knowing the difference. That balance feels very hard to find. It is, especially at first, but freedom starts when you accept this truth. People will judge you no matter what. If you succeed, they judge. If you fail, they judge. If you change, they judge. If you stay the same, they judge. So the real question becomes, do you want to be judged for being yourself or judged for hiding? One path gives peace, the other gives exhaustion. I feel like fear of judgment has stopped me from doing many things, and you're not alone. Fear of judgment stops people from changing careers, starting businesses, ending relationships, speaking English, expressing emotions, or simply being honest. The price of caring too much is a small life, a quiet life, a safe life, but not a fulfilled one. Confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is acting even when fear is present. This conversation already feels heavy, but very real. I feel many listeners are thinking, okay, but how do I actually stop caring so much? That's the right question. Understanding the problem is the first step. Now we will talk about practical strategies, real exercises, and mindset shifts that help people slowly detach from the others people opinions and build internal validation instead of external approval. Okay, we talked about why we care so much about what people think and how that fear controls many of our decisions. Now, I want to ask the question everyone is waiting for. How do we actually stop caring so much? How do we work on this in real life? The first step is understanding that caring too much about opinions is not a personality flaw, it is a learned behavior. You learned it from childhood, school, family, and society. So the goal is not to delete this fear, but to retrain your relationship with it. You don't stop caring overnight. You slowly reduce the power that other people's opinion have over your decisions. This happens when you stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I respect myself? That sounds simple, but in practice it feels very hard, especially when criticism is public. Of course, public judgment feels threatening because it attacks identity. But here's something very important. Most people are not thinking about you as much as you think. They are busy thinking about themselves, their problems, their fears. Comments feel big to you because they touch your insecurity, not because they are objectively important. When someone criticizes you, ask yourself, is this useful feedback or just noise? If it's noise, let it pass. Not every opinion deserves a response or emotional energy. What about fear of disappointing people, family, friends, coworkers? This is one of the deepest fears. Many people confuse love with approval. They believe that if they disappoint someone, they will lose love. But healthy relationships survive disagreement. If someone only loves you when you behave a certain way, that is control, not love. You are allowed to grow, change, and choose differently. Disappointment is part of adult life. Avoiding it at all costs keeps you emotionally stuck. So, how do we build confidence from inside, not from others? You build internal validation by keeping promises to yourself. Confidence does not come from compliments, it comes from action. When you say you will do something and you do it, even something small, your brain learns to trust you. That trust becomes self respect. And when you respect yourself, external opinions lose power. People with strong internal validation still hear criticism, but it doesn't define them. Many people are afraid of being judged as selfish or arrogant if they stop caring. That fear is very common. But there is a big difference between being confident and being arrogant. Arrogance says, I am better than others. Confidence says, I am responsible for my life. You can be kind, respectful, and empathic without living for approval. Boundaries are not cruelty, boundaries are clarity. When you stop over explaining yourself, people may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is not your responsibility. You said earlier that sometimes we should care what people think. Can you explain that again? Yes, this is very important. Caring about feedback is healthy when it helps you grow. For example, if a boss gives constructive feedback or a loved one expresses concern with respect, listening is wise. But gossip, mockery, and judgment are not guidance, they are distractions. Ask yourself, does this person live the life I want? Do they know me deeply? Do they want me growth? If the answer is no, their opinion should not guide your life. What is the biggest change you see in people who stop caring so much? They become calmer, lighter, more authentic. They stop performing and start living. They speak more honestly. They take more risks. They accept that not everyone will like them, and that's okay. The most fulfilled people are not the most admired, they are the most aligned with themselves. If you could give one final message to someone listening right now who feels trapped by other people's opinion, what could it be? I could say this: your life is too valuable to be lived for an audience. People will forget your mistakes faster than you think, but you will remember the chances you didn't take. Care about being a good person, not a perfect one. Care about your values, not your image. At the end of the day, the only opinion you cannot escape is your own. That really hits deep. Thank you for this conversation. I feel this is something many people needed to hear. Thank you. And remember, freedom begins the moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself.